This is Dads and Dunks, your to-the-point Wolves Talk podcast. I'm Tom.
And I'm Josh.
We drop this pod every Monday at 6 a.m. with a 35-minute recap of the week, the stats, the vibes, and the storylines shaping this team. All right, Josh, you're up.
Well, first off, Tom, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I watched very little of the Super Bowl. It was boring. It was terrible. I was actually at the Timberwolves game, which was also super boring and horrible. So not a super exciting night at the Anderson household, but we did our best. How about you?
Kind of watched it between putting kids to bed. Yeah, it wasn't something I was super interested in. I was like, oh, well, will Darnold win? I've got some friends who are Seahawks fans, but it was a dud. So it's kind of a dud weekend.
Yeah.
Coming
from the game, which was just really sad, the Timberwolves game, into trying to watch a little bit of the Super Bowl. You know, not the night I was expecting. I was expecting an exciting win for the Timberwolves, and then, you know, maybe coming back and seeing some exciting football, and neither of those things happened. So I guess we'll get into that a little bit. We've got the weekly tip-off coming up here, but mostly we'll run through quickly what the theme was, I think, of the week before we get into a special guest for this week too. But if you want to kick us off, I guess we can get into the weekly tip-off.
Yep, so we'll walk through this past week's action, the scores, the standout moments, and the storylines that carry us into the week ahead. Normally, we break the night games down game by game. We just kind of decided that every game was basically the same, and so we just talk about them in general. The Wolves were 1-3 this past week. We lost to the Grizzlies 128-137. We had a crazy fourth quarter comeback against the Raptors, so we won that game 128-126. We lost to the Pelicans. We lost to them 115-119. And then we got blown out by the Clippers earlier today. We're recording this Sunday night. We lost 96-115. And so thinking about those games, I mean, Tom, feel free to push back, but I just feel like no defense, no effort. The Ayo trade was great, and I think Finch is in trouble.
Everyone felt excited about the Ayo trade. We have someone on later who's like, we're so sad that we don't have Ayo anymore, and feeling a little under the weather here. But I was excited. I was just like, it feels like there's energy behind this. We didn't get Giannis. I think you and I were both like, yeah, that's good. We didn't have to cut our team for Giannis. The energy felt like it should be there. We got Jaden McDaniels, but then they did nothing. They did the same thing they've been doing all year after saying, we're gonna be able to like turn the corner, and then Rudy calls out the team, and then Finch calls out Rudy for calling out the team.
So weird.
What? Even though Finch calls out players all the time and says we do that in house, Rudy shouldn't have done that. Like, what? What's your perspective on that? Like, why would he call out Rudy for calling out players? That's what a veteran player does, is calls his teammates out publicly when they're not playing well, and they're not.
Well, and I really appreciate what Rudy said, because he talked about, hey, if we're a serious team, if we want to win, like, we should be held accountable. If we can't hold ourselves accountable, and he talked about how they should as professionals, then it's on the coaches to do that. And he even said, hey, if I'm not doing my job, like, don't play me, like, bench me. And I think what kind of really bummed me out about the whole situation is Finch kind of gets on Rudy. And this is after the Pelicans game. And so then we have the Clippers game, which was just happened on Sunday. And we just got absolutely smacked. No defense, no effort. I feel like we were just settling for jump shots. I mean, you were there, so I'm sure you have a take on the energy, but it just felt like if that's going to be a response, Chris Finch, after the Pelicans game is, oh, don't worry, like, we took care of this. And then your team just absolutely lays an egg. Well, either the team doesn't care what you have to say, which yikes, or you didn't bring it up. But either way, like, you didn't get what you're looking for. Also, too bad we don't have like a young, energetic defensive player that we could just throw in when things aren't going very well. Like, Yohan Berenjay got 5 non-garbage minutes these 4 games. And there's so many times where it's like, man, we could really use somebody just being active and trying hard. And I don't know, it's just really weird that
his garbage minutes were fun. We stuck around for the whole thing.
Yeah, I watched it.
The whole place was empty by the time we left. Shout out Travis for getting us some really bougie box seats. I've never been in the box seats before, and it was really cool. But it was a bummer of a game. But we stuck around and watched the whole thing, and then it was fun at that point. He was blocking people, locking people down on defense. The energy that he brought to the game, even in garbage minutes, was so fun. Like, the whole time I was like, why are we playing our starters this entire time? Not in the second and the third, not even all the way into the end. It felt like Finch was playing them into the end to like teach them a lesson, like
That was weird.
a bit of a like, I'm gonna make you be embarrassed
Also
by
dumb because
this
we have a
moment.
back-to-back. We play the Hawks Monday night. Like,
Yes,
we have the white flag. Let's try to win that game. It was so weird.
it was weird to have them playing when the stadium was empty. It was odd. You're down 20 and the stadium's empty and you're not going to win and you're playing your starters. But even before that, yeah, back to the point. I think that no minutes for Baron J, just sloppy. It was so yeah, they scored a bunch of points. Kawhi got Kawhi whistles. But where was the offense? Where
Yeah, but
like
Conan Niederhauser was like owning us on the boards. He was throwing down dunks. I know he's a decent young player, but like you've got Rudy Gobert, you've got Julius Randle. I feel like Julius Randle was like not looking to pass, was just not getting back on deep. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty anti Julius, but he did nothing to change my perspective this week. I mean, we only win the Toronto game because Ant went supernova in the last 5 minutes, hit some crazy shots, had a great block, had a great steal. Like he won us that game. If he doesn't go top 3 player in the league supernova, like we're talking about being 0-4. And even with him doing that, we're only 1-3. It felt like the strategy this week was, hey, these teams kind of suck. We're not going to play very hard, and hopefully Ant can just rally us at the end. It worked for one of the games, and he finished somewhat well against the Pelicans. But like he scored 39 against Memphis, we lost. He scored 30 against Toronto, we barely won. He scored 35 against the Pelicans, we lost. And he had a crap game against the Clippers.
you can't be a serious team that loses to the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, and then the Clippers, who aren't tanking because it's not their pick, but who have offloaded key pieces of their team for the future.
2 of their 3 best players are no longer on the team.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, it's even more than that. We have lost 8. Let me see. 8 of our last 13. I mean, that's not great. And then if you look at the standings, I mean, we're 5-5 in our last 10. We're down to 6. We're only a half game out of the 7 seed. We're getting further and further away from like the 2 seed, the 3 seed, all of those things. I don't know. I know that we're this team that like we finish strong and we like do well when our backs against the wall, but we're making it a lot harder than it needs to be. And it's also just disappointing. Like, do you guys care? And if it's the roster, I don't think a team is going to just flip the whole roster. I know I've been a little bit more pessimistic about Finch the past, few months. I really do think unless something turns around dramatically, like he's going to be gone in the offseason.
Yeah, it feels like it. And they're so much more talented than a team like the Lakers. They're so much more talented than the Clippers. They're so much more talented than the Suns. The like crew that they're like floating into is just like the bottom of the playoff bracket. It was really cool to see Ayo play. I really liked that today. Everyone in the stadium really got excited about that. And I think he hustled. He hit some shots. I think in general, he's going to be a good fit. It was cool to be there for his first game. But other than that,
He played decent.
yeah, it's just, I mean, first game in, you can't expect him to be
Yeah.
lights out player first game in. But I think he'll be a good addition to the team. But at this point, we need the rest of our core players to play well. Like you can't just like expect Ayo to come in and save the team.
The only thing I'll say about Stat Chat is last week we were 4-0. We beat Golden State, Dallas, Oklahoma City, and Memphis, and we had the second ranked defense. This week we were 1-3, and we have the 29th ranked defense, and we didn't play high quality opponents.
Yeah, that's effort.
Yeah, that's my thing. So Stat Chat is effort. It needs to be improved.
Yeah. I know. I feel like we were coming in here. We're going to do really like fun stat chat around like 3-pointers and how awesome our team was going to be. But after this week, how do you even just stand up and say, like, this team is amazing? I know I think we were going to do some stats around, the 3-point shooting percentage with Ayo and with Ant and Julius, not even Julius, Jaden and Nas and DDV. But how do you come in and celebrate this, which should have been a celebratory week around a new player, and then it's just like, oh, now we're just up. It's this roller coaster. We had a title of one of our first episodes was like a roller coaster for the week, and I think that we're just on it. We're just on it again.
Yeah, I don't know if we're on a roller coaster. I feel like we're just on the thing that drops you to the ground from like 100 feet up because we're just going straight down. I mean, even to your point, talking about like DDV and Jaden, they scored 3 combined points today. You're
Yeah,
not
and
gonna win very
Julius
many games.
Julius when he scored his first points, I don't know how long it was into the game. What it took you like 15 minutes to score at all. Like when he scored
And
and
he
we were
took
like,
a lot of
"Yay,
shots.
you finally scored, Julius. Good job." But yeah, brutal. All right, what's up next?
Next, we have one big thing. Tom, take it away.
It's got to be the trade deadline. Obviously, Giannis not getting moved is a big deal. James Harden, the Cavaliers trade happened. Anthony Davis to the Wizards, weird, happened. Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Jazz. A little
Right
worried
after
about
he torched us. Right after he torched us.
the Jazz. Like I don't know why. I feel like they have some players that could be tough for us in the future. Porzingis to the Warriors, whatever. Like okay, Zubac to the Pacers. That's sneaky in the East. It's not in the West. So I think for next year
Pacers
that'll
are
be
gonna be
fun.
good.
That'll be fun to see. Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Jazz. Anthony Davis. I feel sad about that. Anything big for you other than the Giannis news on that? I feel like it got all shook up, but like it all still feels the same kind of in the West.
Yeah, I was trying to think about it from like the Wolves' perspective of like the teams that were fighting for jostling with to get, top playoff spots, like what really shifted. I mean, OKC got Jared McCain. I watched the game they had against the Rockets. He played a little bit. I don't know. He might be good. I know SGA is gonna be out for a while. He can shoot. That might be helpful.
Did they give up a first for him?
He gave up a first and a few seconds. Going to be like
Yeah,
a,
not a
a
good
great
first.
first. The Lakers got Kennard. I mean, he's a good shooter. Doesn't help with their bad defense. I don't really think anybody else in the West really did anything to like fortify themselves in kind of that top tier. So I don't know. Those are the kind of a couple trades that suck out. I don't know about Utah. I mean, they got Jaren Jackson. I know they traded a bunch of capital to get him. I mean, having Kessler, Triple J, Laurie Markkinen, it's an interesting front line. I don't know. We'll see if they get a top pick. I'm not really worried about them this year, but
Not this year. I just mean in the future because Jaren Jackson Jr.
always
tends to
seems to
be
kill us.
tough, and Markkinen seems to be tough for the Wolves to play against
John
too.
Moran didn't get traded. That's interesting. I think that just shows you that like nobody wants him and he's just
People were like
a
the
negative
Wolves should
asset.
just trade away all of our team for him, and in the end it was like you have to give us a draft pick to take him. That's how
Yeah.
bad this is.
I don't want him on our team.
No, me neither. Yeah, I just think nobody really traded away a whole lot. I think that the Warriors didn't do anything, the Lakers didn't do anything, Rockets didn't do anything. So that's why I was excited about the Wolves. It's like we actually did something to try to get better, and we did because we weren't playing Rob.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, we got rid of a player we weren't playing for.
Rob did look okay in his first game with the Bulls.
Yeah, he did. It was with
Not
the
great.
Bulls,
I mean,
and
he played like 19, no, maybe 22 minutes. He threw a couple lobs, but he looked fast. He got in the paint. He sprayed out to some 3-point shooters. I mean, honestly, all things that I feel like we could have used instead of those Mike Conley minutes early in the year, but what do I know? What do
yeah,
I know?
I mean, what do you know? What do any of us know at this point? But no, I think that was again, the big news, not getting Giannis. He's sitting, but I will say it doesn't mean that we can't get Giannis later on down the road. Like I feel like other teams will have more ammunition probably too this summer than we do to go get Giannis.
But if he wants to come here and he makes that clear, I mean, how many
We could
times has a star player said, "Oh, no, I want to go to X team," and then X team gets that player at a discount? Not saying it's going to happen, but I do think that you'll see a different roster going into the next season. I mean, we've still got 25 games left. We'll be in the playoffs. There's still an opportunity to do some damage, but I am really interested what happens with the front office, with our coaching staff. What does our roster look like? I don't think they can go into next season with the same roster. So it'll be interesting to see how Tim maneuvers the chess pieces.
Yeah, and then if we get to if the Cavaliers come out of the East and, we come out of the West, we can play against your favorite player, James Harden.
He's a talented player. I don't really understand what you're doing with James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, but it just seems redundant. I don't know.
It's very redundant. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It is an indictment of Darius Garland. Like, you clearly do not think he can play anymore on your team at that
That's a good point.
But yeah, speaking of the trades, speaking of Ayo Dosunmu, Julian Phillips, we've got a special guest coming up here soon. I don't
I'm
know.
excited for this.
Yeah, I know, Josh. You're gonna dip out for this one. We've got this recorded previously, but we'll pull you back in for the last segment of this too. But we can move on to our interview, our bench mob segment, our first inaugural. If you're all right with that.
Let's do it.
All right, before we get to Howl or Foul today, we're starting a new segment. This is our Bench Mob segment. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll notice the person here on the screen is not Josh. It is, in fact, Justin. So welcome. Thanks for being here. I know we've given a lot of our takes. We did an emergency pod on the trade deadline with Ayo, and just wanted to get somebody else in here who has a little more experience with the Bulls than we do. So welcome, Justin. If you want to just do a quick hello, who you are, why you decided to come on today, whatever you want. The floor is yours. Quick.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So my name's Justin. I run the JTalksHoops page on Twitter, and I think that's how I found you guys, just talking. I'm primarily a Bulls fan, but I do just talk, all basketball. I've spent way too much time watching basketball. So yeah, I'm just always watching, and Io being traded to the Timberwolves, being that I live in Minnesota, but I'm a diehard Chicago Bulls fan. It kind of gave me an interesting perspective because I watch a lot of Bulls and I watch a lot of Wolves. So I feel like I got a pretty good handle on this trade from both sides.
Nice. Yeah. So from the Bulls' perspective, what do you see as Ayo's strengths to start with? Basically, like what are the Wolves getting with this guy?
The Wolves are really getting like the best. It's gonna sound hyperbolic to say this, but they're really getting like the best option they could get at the guard position for their roster because Ayo, one, he's a good defender and he's a scrappy defender. He's 6'5". He has a wingspan that's like 6'8", 6'9". He's got long arms, so he can stay with guys. He can really guard 1 through 3. When he was with the Chicago Bulls, I was always saying I want to see him play a little bit more off ball. I always compared it to like Bruce Brown. If you remember Bruce Brown when he came in the league, they were trying to pigeonhole him as a point guard, and then he got to Denver and they started using him off ball as an off ball cutter. And I wanted to see that from Ayo too because he has that capability. So you're getting a guy who can guard 1 through 3. He's one of the best downhill finishers in the NBA. People keep pointing to the 45% from 3, which is great. But if you really watch his tape, one of his strengths is he gets the ball and he just goes to the rim. He'll go from point A at the 3-point line to the rim in the blink of an eye, and he's a great finisher at the rim too. And then you're getting the 3-point shooting, the 45% from 3. He's a good catch and shoot guy, and he's not a guy. The Timberwolves kind of have this problem. It's a similar problem that the Bulls have, where a lot of guys stand around and watch. Ayo Dosunmu doesn't do that. He's always cutting off ball. He's always moving. So they're really getting a guy who complements their roster really well.
That's a good point because like I said, I can go on Cleaning the Glass. I can go on NBA, or Basketball Reference and look at stats, and I can watch highlights. The highlight reels are exciting, but I think that the part about the movement, that's something that again, the perspective of having you on is having not watched enough. I appreciate that insight because that is really frustrating when Julius gets into bully ball and Ant. I mean, I give Ant a pass when he's doing it on his own because he's so good. But it does hurt down the stretch when the rest of his team isn't engaged, and then you get late in the game and those guys haven't been shooting and they haven't been engaged in the game. I think it definitely hurts. So that's cool to hear. Positives. We've done a lot of positives. I'm like glowing about this. I feel like it's great. Even though we gave up a ton as a Wolves fan, it was too much to give up in theory, right? If you were thinking multiple firsts for Rob and all these seconds for this player, but the Rob stuff is in the rearview mirror. Like we had to pivot. So I'm happy about it. I think you didn't give up anything of value because Rob was just sitting on the bench, like doing absolutely not even getting a single minute in any game anyway. But that's a tangent. But so that was the positive stuff. But if we're looking for something that the Wolves fans are going to be like, why did we trade for this guy? Everyone's going to nitpick if there's like a rough patch or something that he doesn't do quite as well. Is there something that as we progress, you see that like these Wolves fans are going to worry, man, we gave up too much, or there's like some flaw, I guess, in this game?
I mean, as long as you have reasonable expectations about him, not really, because if you're expecting him to come in and be like a dynamic on-ball creator like a Kobe White, he's not that. He's not a guy who excels at creating his own shot. Like I said, he's really good at getting downhill, finishing at the rim. He's a good 3-point shooter, but like asking him to take the ball and cook and create something off the dribble, not his strength. But I don't think Wolves fans are looking for that necessarily. I was at the game, what was it, 2 weeks ago when the Bulls beat the Wolves? And it was kind of funny because I was the only Bulls fan in the section. So Wolves fans, they were asking, they were like, what about Kobe White? Can we get Kobe White? And I was like, yeah, take Kobe White off our hands. Like, go for it. But by the end of the game, they weren't asking about Kobe White anymore. They were asking about Ayo and Trey Jones. And I was like, I don't want to give up either of those guys. But yeah, Ayo, as long as your expectations are reasonable and you expect a guy who's going to come in, play solid defense, be kind of the connective glue on the offensive end and a good catch and shoot player, you're going to be very happy. If you're expecting like a on-ball creator type of point guard, that's just not his game.
Yeah, I think there'll be plenty of moves in the offseason to try to maybe find for the Wolves, a traditional point guard, because we still don't have one, but we needed bench juice. And if we weren't going to have a traditional point guard, and if you did have a traditional point guard coming in, like then what, you're going to sit DDV and demote him down to the bench too. And then you're messing with everything. So I think that they'll be all right with that, but that's good to hear the perspective. Cause I think, again, as Wolves fans, we all have busy lives and busy jobs. That's why we started this podcast, was just to give people a little bit of insight into this Wolves team. And so we have a lot of opportunity to watch the Wolves again, but not a lot for this insight for these players. So I hope this is enlightening for some folks as we go into hopefully what will be the first start or first game for them on Sunday. But we also got this Julian Phillips person. Like, I know it seems like maybe a throwaway, maybe a G League guy, somebody that Finch would stick at the end of the bench and never play because he doesn't play the end of his bench. But for upside down the road, like, what is the skill set? What is like the flashes of good things that, if made more consistent, would lead to like a potential eighth man in a rotation down the road, maybe?
So I will say Julian Phillips as a player, he's a lot better than like the Leonard Millers or the Josh Minotts or some of the other like past second round G League guys that I know Wolves fans have had to try to get excited about. Like Julian Phillips is objectively better than those guys. Think of like a light version of Derrick Jones Jr. He's like 6'7". He's got long arms. He's great at running to the rim and finishing above the rim. On the defensive end, on ball defense leaves a little bit to be desired right now, but he is a really good help side defender. So he'll get a couple blocks. He's developed a little bit of a corner 3-point game, but not super reliable from there. Maybe he could carve out some minutes in the future. Like you said, Finch doesn't really play young guys, but Phillips, when he has gotten opportunities, like at the very least, you can say he plays hard. Like every minute that he's out there, he's playing hard. He's trying, he's crashing the offensive glass. So maybe he could carve out a little bit of a role for himself. It'd be really interesting to see between him and Terrence Shannon who would get more minutes in that kind of role. Because to me, Terrence Shannon looks pretty raw when he gets minutes too. And it seems like there's a hole in the Wolves rotation for one of those archetype of players to try to step up.
Yeah, when you mentioned his play style, Julian Phillips, the first person that I thought of was Terrence Shannon Jr. And TJ has actually gotten run, even though he hasn't defended well at all. And so he's the type of player, the way you're describing him, as a player that Finch would give a chance to, just because it's there. As long as he's not messing up schemes and stuff, I think he wants some of that juice off the bench. But yeah, it's always interesting to see who Finchy decides is the guy to be playing off the bench and who isn't. But I would say the archetype of what you're talking about, like maybe just a little bit taller than TJ with a little bit of that, like a little bit of that Jaden lurk behind and get a block defensively, but room for growth. But that I'm excited about that. And having, again, not known who really much at all about Julian Phillips, that sounds like the type of player that has the skills and maybe can develop into a even 7-8 minute guy. I would be fine with somebody who can come. If it's more, I'd be ecstatic. If it's even more than that, I'd be really happy. But I don't know what was like Julian Phillips's run in Chicago time wise. How much playing was it? Just like end of the bench? Were there minutes given? Were like in stretches? Not knowing their roster and where they were backed up, we had to offload players because we had too many of those bigs forwards kind of to start with, and so not knowing Chicago's roster. What was he like in Chicago?
So he never really carved out like a consistent role in the rotation. Now, part of that is Billy Donovan is very much like Chris Finch, where he doesn't trust young guys at all. I mean, a big point of contention in the Bulls fan base right now is Modest Buzelis, because he's the most promising young guy on the team. And Billy Donovan has a really quick trigger with him. Like as soon as he makes a turnover or takes a bad shot, he yanks him out of the game. And obviously, we want young guys to be able to make mistakes and grow. So it's hard to do that if you're yanking them out right away. And Julian Phillips kind of fell into that trap too, where anytime he'd get some run, as soon as there was like a mental lapse or a little mistake, he'd get the hook. And it's like you got to kind of expect that with young players a little bit. But I will say whenever he was on the court, you definitely noticed him out there. He wasn't a player that was invisible when he did get some run. You always noticed he was crashing the glass. He was, trying to make something happen. So I think there's something to be said for players like that, because as a basketball fan, I hate guys where when I'm watching a game and 10 minutes have passed, I'm like, wait a minute, you've been out there the whole time. Like Patrick Williams for the Bulls is like this, where 20 minutes will pass and he'll finally make a shot and you'll be like, I didn't even realize this guy was out here because he's just invisible. You don't have that problem with Julian Phillips.
Well, I'm glad to hear. Not that I'm glad to hear that the Bulls have that problem too, but being tunnel visioned into the Wolves and Finch and all of this and being in that ecosystem makes me, I don't know, happy kind of that we're not the only team that's dealing with that, or just expands my knowledge base here. That I think it's good to break out of that. That maybe Finch isn't the only head coach that keeps things tight and doesn't give young players a ton of runs. So, because that is the biggest thing that people just like consistently hate about Chris Finch. So cool. I really appreciate that. Wanted to ask too before we wrap, and you put this out there too. What's your favorite memory of Ayo in a Bulls uniform? Not to make this trade worse for you already, but sometimes it's good to mourn the loss with a trip down memory lane. So
Yeah, I mean, mourning is the right word, because if you guys have looked on like Bulls social media or anything, you won't find a Bulls fan that likes this trade. Like every Bulls fan is pretty pissed off, and it's because Ayo was the hometown kid. He's born and raised in Chicago, went to the University of Illinois, second round pick by the team, worked his way into a consistent starter. And with Ayo, every minute he's out there, he's playing hard and he brings like a joy to the game. Like my wife doesn't watch too much basketball, but she does catch a lot of Bulls basketball. He was always her favorite player because she was like, he just looks like he's having fun. Where like Vucevic, she's always like, he just looks so grumpy all the time. Where Ayo, he's always having fun. So there's a lot of good memories of him. My favorite will always be it was the 22-23 season. DeMar DeRozan, end of the game. There's like 10 seconds left. DeMar DeRozan doing what DeMar DeRozan does, isolating, trying to get the last shot. He airballs it. Ayo Dosunmu tips it in, and the whole team just like mobs him. It was funny. It's if you watch the clip, I think I put it on my Twitter. It's funny because John Collins was on the Hawks at the time, and Dosunmu tipped it, fell on top of him, and the Bulls just mobbed him while John Collins was still on the bottom of the pile, and he's just sitting there. So it's a pretty funny clip, but that'll always be my favorite memory of him. But yeah,
we'll
you
get
guys
that
are
one.
it's getting a great player. And I know I have a friend, I'm not going to name drop her here, but she works for the organization, the Timberwolves. And she told me yesterday she's the one who like got to introduce Ayo Dosunmu to Minnesota basically and show him around the Target Center and everything like that. And she texted me and she was like, "You weren't exaggerating. He's like the nicest guy in the world." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the type of player you guys are getting, like the nicest dude and just plays hard all the time."
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we'll have to make sure we repost it too. And then I think that like was really good for that segment so far. But I just want to also leave it up to like thank you again, obviously, but leave it up to you if there's anything we missed, like between the questions between these lines. I know the Chicago fan. I did see the Chicago fan base was pretty sad about losing this, which makes it obviously us feel like a little Schadenfreude, like taking a little pleasure from others' pain here. But yeah, anything else on this deal that we missed or something that we should know about him or, his role or just anything at all?
I mean, I'll just say if you have anybody who's telling you guys that this was an overpay, you're out of your minds because Rob Dillingham, I'm sorry, just objectively has not been an NBA quality player thus far in his career. And I'm rooting for Rob. I hope he figures it out. I'll never root for a guy to just be a bust, but objectively, me watching him in the NBA so far, he just looks too small. He kind of looks like an eighth grader who got bumped up to varsity when he's out there. Like he's got a small frame and he gets pushed off his spots. Like he plays really hard, but he's so small that it's really hard for him out there. So to give up him and it's 4 second-round picks, but the way the seconds work, like 2 of them are probably going to be in the 50s in the next 2 years, and then the other ones aren't until what 2030 and 31, I think. So you got Ayo Dosunmu for free, who going into the trade deadline, a bunch of national media people like The Ringer did a top guards available. The Bleacher Report ran it. Ayo was at the top of that list for a lot of those media outlets as far as league-wide guards who are going to be available for a trade. So you guys got the best guard available essentially for free, and he really could be the piece that it kind of helps you get over the hump and get to that next area the Timberwolves need to hit.
This does lead me to another question, though, because I actually was listening to Zach Lowe, and they were like, I don't know what Chicago is doing. Can someone explain this to me? Is there like an actual reason, as someone who's plugged in, for why this was the decision and to be made?
Doesn't seem to be any sort of cohesive plan for the Chicago Bulls. I mean, some people will say they're finally signaling that they're ready to tank, which we've all been calling for years because this team has been stuck in the play-in for like 4 years now. But if this was you signaling that you're going to tank, you did it way too late, because if you look at the standings, they're not going to finish better than with like the ninth best odds, because all the teams below them in the standings have no incentive to try to win either. Like, that's one thing as an NBA fan, we are about to see some of the most aggressive levels of tanking we've ever seen from some of these teams. Like the Grizzlies, the Jazz, the Pacers, the Wizards, like all these teams are going to just, it's going to be disgusting to watch down the stretch. So that
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
I won't be tuning into a lot of those, I don't think.
No. And then just the trades themselves don't really make sense. You moved out Ayo, you moved out Kobe White, and then you just brought in more guards. So like Rob Dillingham, if he's going to be like your salvation project, you hope he can rehab a former lottery pick. If he couldn't beat out Bones Highland for rotation minutes in Chicago, how's he going to be, or in Minnesota, how's he going to beat out Josh Giddey, Trey Jones, Jaden Ivey, Anthony Simons, Colin Sexton for minutes in Chicago? Nothing the Bulls did made any sense. Fans are frustrated. With as far as the Ayo trade goes, honestly, if you would have put Terrence Shannon in Rob Dillingham's place, Bulls fans probably would have stomached it a little better, because at least it's not another guard. At least it's a wing. It's a position of need. But the fact that it was a guard for a guard when we already had too many guards, it's really hard to wrap your mind around. And I've enjoyed listening to like Zach Lowe, Bill Simmons, Chris Mannix, Brian Windhorst, all these big national media people being like, what the hell is going on in Chicago? Like, it's good to know that it's not just us who are like, what is going on here?
Yeah. I don't know, but I'm glad that it worked out in our favor, and I'm sorry, Chicago Bulls fans. That's brutal. Yeah, I was gonna ask you real quick. So Josh couldn't make it into this segment, but we are also, a lot of people have heard our take as like pure Wolves fans, as people who just like love people on this squad. And so for Holler Foul, the next section we got coming up, we've got a question around Giannis, and I'm wondering if you just want to stick around for that and give your take too, since you're here and it feels like it's flowing pretty good. So if that's cool with you,
Yeah,
I'd love
for
you to
sure.
stick around for a minute. Awesome. Cool. So basically, Josh and I on this one, I'll read the statement quick. So basically, it is the Wolves dodged a bullet in not getting Giannis at the trade deadline. And then I know it's a howl for Josh, even though he's not here, and it's a howl for me. So is that a howl? Do you agree with that, or is that a foul for you for this Wolves squad?
I gotta zag. I gotta go foul. I really wanted the Wolves to get Giannis at the trade deadline because, yeah, I'm a Bulls fan, but I live here in Minnesota, so I go to Wolves games, and objectively, it just would have been so much more entertaining if you guys would have got Giannis. Like, I understand the trade would have been crazy, you would have had no depth back, but my perspective was Giannis is at worst the third best player in the world. To me, Anthony Edwards is the fourth or fifth best player in the world. So if you got a chance to put two of the top five players in the world together, put them together and figure out the rest later. Like that it would have been the closest we've seen to a Kobe Shaq pairing since Kobe and Shaq. You got a dominant big man who shoots, what's he shoot, like 65% from the field because he just dunks all the time. And then you got an athletic two guard who's the future of the NBA. Like it would have been a lot of fun. It wouldn't have won a title this year because they wouldn't have had the depth, but you could have put them together, taken the summer to figure out the rest of the team around them, and I don't know, it would have been a lot of fun.
It would have been a lot of fun. I agree. It would have been a lot of fun. I think I'm more of a worrier by nature, I think, and I just worried about the future of being able to fill the roster out. Again, to your point, though, other people would have wanted to play here too, right? Like you would obviously attract people to play. I do think this summer with him staying, I don't know that the door's necessarily closed. I think other teams will have more ammunition now in the summer too, but we'll have a little bit more, and we could put, I mean, the rest of our team is still up for negotiation. It just was the Jaden thing. Like it just is be tough. If you're offloading all of Ant's buddies and then not getting a title, and then you can't fill out the roster. I just went to like, then does Ant want to leave? Like if you put yourself in a position where you have no draft capital, you have like two players taking up most of your salary cap, you have You haven't won a title and like his buddies are gone. And I just feel like we're so lucky as a small franchise team to have gotten Anthony Edwards, because no one really chooses to come here, that it
Yep.
would just be so devastating, 3 years from now. Anthony Edwards is looking to hit the road. So that's just like, I went to worst case scenario with it, but it
Yeah.
would have been fun. I agree. It would have been fun.
Can I
Also,
ask you a
yes.
question as an outsider here? Like, yeah, I get a lot of Wolves stuff, and there's one thing that I don't quite understand about Wolves fans. What is it with you guys and Jaden McDaniels? Because the way you guys talk about this dude, like he's a nice player, don't get me wrong, but like the way when they were like, "Oh man, we can't trade Jaden McDaniels for Giannis," I was like, "Dude, you're talking about a guy who Jaden top somewhere between 50 and 75 player in the NBA versus the third best player in the NBA." Like, as a non-Wolves fan, I'm curious, why is a guy who's like 15 points a game and really good defense, why is that the one guy that Wolves fans are like, we cannot lose him?
From my perspective, I think if it was like him and Picks and not like him and Julius and Nas and Picks, and like I think the total package was too much, and I think that the hang up was Jaden, because they like really wanted Jaden in the deal. And I think that it was all of it. If it was just Jaden, I think it would be a little bit different, because obviously Giannis plays defense. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like, but Jaden, I think his ascension, his defense, I think there's a lot going on with him and Ant and his personality, and those two just like coming up together and just the vibe that they have. But I will say Jaden's leap when he gets the opportunity offensively is really great. Like, yeah, he's not Giannis. We're not pretending that Jaden is Giannis. I think if it was just him and some picks, or even him and Julius and some picks, I think we'd have probably been okay with that. Or Rudy. And I'm a Rudy. I actually am a Rudy defender. I think he's what got us to the Western Conference Finals twice. He's a unique player. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way. But defensively, he's really good, invested in their team. But yeah, Jaden's. I think that he has his ascension and his arc, especially for like where he's at in his career. I think we feel like he has the opportunity, if he continues to develop, to be like in that all-star like category too. And so with Ant's timeline, what that looks like 2 years, 3 years from now, like letting that core of players develop. But yeah, I hear you. That's a good question. And it's because it was like, we can't get rid of him. He's the one thing we can't get rid of. And I think people would have rightfully been really excited and sad. Like,
Yeah.
and worried. Yeah, it would have been two feelings at the same time, for sure, for
Yeah.
Wolves fans. But that's a good probing question for sure. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about that. This is really great. Also, want to lastly just let you know we appreciate you being here. And then if you want to plug any of your socials or anything right now, tell people where they can find you. Again, that'd be great.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter under the handle JTalksHoops. I have the same handle on TikTok and YouTube as well. My content on that is, I do like these, I call them walk and talk segments. So every day when I walk my dog, I just take the phone out, record like a 5 to 10 minute video about whatever's going on in the NBA. So it's not Chicago Bulls content. It's, the trade deadline, or the Hornets are on a hot streak, or the Timberwolves are on a hot streak. Just total NBA content. So J Talks Hoops on Twitter, TikTok, or YouTube. Throw me a follow there. I follow back. So always happy to connect with fellow basketball fans who just want to talk hoops.
That's awesome. Yeah, digestible content. And it's part of, why we started this too, to do a 35, 40-minute pod once a week so people could get recaps. I've had people reach out to me and say, I can't follow it all. I'm too busy. I appreciate it. So I think sending them your way too, for when they're walking their dog. That's when my buddy mine's like, when I walk my dog, I listen to your pod in the morning. So also, throw that your way too. So I appreciate your time. And thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks again, Justin. We have our final section here. So we have Helping the Pack. We ask folks to head to dadsanddunks.com to support local youth sports fundraisers, teams, and families in need. Every dollar helps kids stay on the court, keep gear in their hands, and opportunities within reach. Go to dadsanddunks@gmail.com to let us know if you have something that you need. And if you like the show, follow, rate, like, subscribe, and tell a friend.
We'll have new clips and content for Wolves Community Conversations dropping on Instagram and YouTube all week.
This is Dads and Dunks. Go Wolves.
Go Wolves.